Right. So the theme of our summit is working with the whole person. And with that in mind, it is my great pleasure to introduce Simon Slieker. Simon comes to all of us from rural Victoria. Simon is a somatic educator and a certified Feldenkrais practitioner whose work has an ecological focus. From his eco-somatica practice in the Victorian Otway region, I should say, he assists people to explore the connection between self and other, and earth. How is it to be human in an ecological crisis? How do we stay in touch with ourselves and the earth? So, Simon, your awareness through movement lesson is titled, I'm just checking my soft ground, soft. I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you, Georgie, for such a lovely introduction. And thank you, Shona, for such a wonderful lesson. I love that. I love that reaching lesson. And what big questions in listening to you read that back. What big questions? How to be human whilst really dealing with the ecological crisis that we find ourselves in at the moment with climate change and etc. And what comes up for me in that, and why this has become a focus for me, is because the ground beneath our feet is our relationship with the ground is something that really we need to be able to trust, to be able to find the softness within ourselves to lightly contact the ground and to move with a lightness and an ease and a swiftness through life. And so the big question comes up, well, how do we do that when the ground is treacherous or when the environment is threatening? And increasingly, these are the times that we're moving into. So that kind of informs my focus somewhat. So this little taster lesson is something from some of the workshops I've run, which are called Eco-Somatica. And it is true that this is a lesson that I'll ask you to be on your feet, but we're actually going to start lying down. So if you could all please lie down on your back. This is it's a little conundrum that comes up for us a lot in awareness through movement. Okay, yes, you'll be on your feet, but start lying down and we'll move back and forth. I'd like to say also that here in the Otway Ranges, it's actually, I live and work from the traditional lands of the Gadabanud people, and that's land that was never ceded. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and their elders past and present, and those who are yet to emerge. So Shona took you through an exploration of feeling the contact of the ground, and I'm going to pick up from there. So in lying down on your back, if it's comfortable for you, can you let your legs lie long and have your hands just resting by your side and just experience yourself lying on the ground. And I'd like to propose a premise here, and that is that the ground on which you lie is a mirror. Now, clearly it's not a mirror that you're looking into and that you can see yourself, but it's a physical mirror. It's a kinesthetic mirror. It's a mirror that profoundly informs you of what is going on in yourself in terms of your relationship with the surface beneath you. And that surface is in a dialogue with you. It informs you. It's mirroring you. So that raises the question, what do you see? What do you see right now? What do you feel in that relationship? What is the ground mirroring? Now, the lens that we'll look through is one of pressure. Where do you feel heaviest? What parts of yourself do you feel pressing more heavily into the ground? And the other way of framing that is, what parts of the ground do you feel pressing into you? Two different perspectives, but coming at the same thing. And that's what mirrors do, right? Even when you're standing looking at yourself in the mirror, those light waves are beaming back at you exactly what is. So are you doing that to the mirror, or is the mirror doing that to you? Are you pressing into the ground, or is the ground pressing into you? And it kind of doesn't matter, right? It's just semantics. Semantics. What matters is where that relationship touches down. Could you please bend your knees and stand your feet? Now, feel how that relationship has changed now. What is the mirror of the ground telling you now? Are those points of pressure a little different now than they were before? And of course, the answer is yes. And so where? And I'd like to just narrow the focus a little bit here, because there's a really interesting, really fascinating, and I could spend all day just on this little relationship here. So it's lucky we've only got 25 minutes. But the relationship between your lower back and the ground, it's such an interesting area. It's this place that is probably the most prone in the human body to stress and strain. And in this little dialogue, in this little relationship, this little conversation between you and the ground, it really becomes a focal point and becomes evident that it's easy to change the relationship. So now with your knees up, you'll probably find that your lower back is a little bit flatter. So let's just accentuate that a little bit more. Could you please tilt your pelvis a little bit towards your head? So you're rolling it so your lower back flattens. Just tilting your pelvis a little bit so that you can feel your lower back flattening. And then just release it and tilt it a little bit up again. And then flatten it again. Flatten your back. And just do this really gently. And notice in yourself, how much control do you have here? Our bodies give us really great signs when we can trust them, when we can listen in, when we can tune in. So sometimes you'll do a movement, and in the quest for control, you may feel yourself stuttering. There's little jittery muscular moments and movements. Now, that's really great information to have. It means that that movement is not so familiar to you. It's not so familiar to your central nervous system. It needs a little bit of ironing out, colouring in, fleshing out. And so it's generally a great thing to explore, with the caveat that can you do that with awareness nice and slowly, and to be able to feel what you're doing so as to not go into strain or stress. So could you extend this tilting of your pelvis now? So you're not only flattening your back, then go back the other way. So you're extending that curve of your lower back as you tilt your pelvis down towards your tailbone, towards your coccyx, towards your heels. And just go back and forth. And again, you're looking for smoothness, ease. You're wanting to be kind to yourself. And really, in this exploration, you're wanting to be kind to the ground. So as you do this, how does the ground feel beneath your pelvis? And what do you think the ground is feeling? How would the ground make sense? How would this mirror that you're in relationship, in this physical relationship right now, how would that mirror feel the presence of you interacting with it? Would it feel this is a hard and uninformed presence? Or something which is mindful and gentle? Would it feel that there's a treading softly happening here with this rounding of your pelvis? Okay, you can stop that. Let your legs go long again. And in your legs being long, just send your attention through the whole of yourself. And do you feel any difference in this pressure relationship with the ground, just from that one simple exploration? And maybe you do, and maybe you don't. There's no right answer to that question. It's just another lens to peer through. Okay. Could you, with the same sense of ease and self-awareness, right, so I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you to do, but before you do it, I'm going to invite you to do it in a way. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. So before you do that, I want you to just be in awareness of yourself in the preparations that you make and the movements that you employ to bring yourself up into standing. And can you do that in a way that feels like you've kind of created a sense of ease throughout the whole without needing to resort to great efforts and jerky movements to pull yourself from one place or another? So please go ahead and bring yourself up into the standing position. Great, thank you, everybody. It's fascinating seeing so many Brady Bunch tiles of everyone all doing the movement all at once. It's like a big dance happening over Zoom here. So, welcome to your feet. And I would like to extend this relationship between you and the ground and this physical mirror experience to this orientation. So here you are on your feet, but you're still standing on this mirror, the ground. So what relationship is articulated now in this orientation? So just feel into this same little exploration that I led in lying down. Just think of that in this position. How are your feet relating to the ground? And what does that tell you about yourself? First of all. And second of all, what do you think the ground is making of it? It's the ground saying, what is this bony protrusion? Full of force. Or would it be saying, oh, nice spread, informed, aware presence interacting with my being? So let's say that that's what it's making of it. And could you please just go for a little stroll with the same sense of awareness? Notice yourself in yourself as you stroll. Notice your contact with the ground. Notice any stumbles. Notice the sense of ease. And then pause. And just in standing now, what I'll do if we were in a workshop context here is I would take you outside and I would find a piece of ground that is treacherous. So just close your eyes for a moment. If you're comfortable to close your eyes in standing, please. And if you're not, then do what you need to. If you're not, then just put your hands on something to give you some support and still close your eyes. So close your eyes and just imagine. So you're standing on some nice soft grass and you're about to step onto some hard and sharp gravel. The kind of ground that there's some flat bits of compacted dirt there, but there's enough gravel to make it treacherous. It's like, this is the kind of ground that when you walk across with bare feet, you start going, as little pieces of gravel press into your feet in all these awkward places that you're not expecting. You don't know what to expect. It's a little bit dangerous, but it's not. It's just uncomfortable. That's the kind of ground you're about to walk on. Now, can you just evoke in yourself what your bodily response to that is? Imagine walking across that ground. Can you feel it in yourself? Can you feel what your response to that does? In the not knowing, when you're going to step on that sharp piece of gravel that presses into the back of your heel or into the ball of your foot, how do you accommodate that? And then pause from that imagining. And it's an uncomfortable thing, right? And there's a really interesting thing. Part of our physical response, part of our way of being is all of a sudden we get all constrained and restricted in ourselves. All of a sudden we start pulling away. So if you think about that physical relationship, that mirroring, we start pulling away and we get stiff and jaunty and start doing all the stuff. Now, here's my question. Does that response make it any easier to walk across that ground? There's this strange lack of trust that goes on in that moment. And it's like we don't trust our physical response in our not trusting the ground. Now, just pause again and pause from my talking. And please resume just having your little walk around where you are, knowing that this is a surface that you have manicured for yourself, that you trust entirely. Got it, Georgie. This is a surface that in trusting, you can also evoke that softness in yourself. This capacity to touch down lightly and in an informed way with a softness and an ease and a spread. Now, can you feel that in this, your feet are soft, your feet are able to spread, your feet are able to accommodate the surface beneath you? Now, can you imagine that if you brought this sense of softness, responsiveness, lightness, and ease to that hard gravel again? And so I invite you, with 20 seconds to go, at some later time, next time you are walking barefoot on that treacherous surface, I invite you to evoke in yourself that softness and trust in yourself and your responsiveness, and see what happens, and enjoy that moment. Thank you.